particles or nanomaterials are different from that of the bulk materials, or nanoparticles or nanomaterials will melt at a lower temperature, sufficiently lower temperature, because there is decrease in the total number of atoms in a thermodynamically stable grain, and there is increase in the number of surface atoms, and there is increase in the dispersion. As there are many number of atoms at the surfaces, these surface atoms are associated with the less number of neighbors. As lesser the number of neighbors, it is easier to lift the atomic portions with lower temperature or lower thermal energy. Hence, nanomaterials will melt at a less temperature or low temperature. Gold in the bulk melts at 1064 degree, but if you make gold in 2 nanometer size, 2 to 5 nanometer, it will melt at about 500 degree. About 50% reduction in the melting point one can see when we move from bulk to nano. Of course, it is material dependent. And there is a creation of new surfaces. When you subdivide bulk particles into nano, the energy required to create unit surface is known as surface energy or specific surface energy. Gamma is equal to dou delta G by dou A, where dou G is change in chemical potential or change in free energy. dA is area. And as the number of atoms at the surface are very large, and they are said to be in the dangling state or dangling bonds. Generally, the surface atoms are associated with the dangling state, dangling bonds. What are dangling bonds? Carbon requires 4 valency to satisfy to be stable. If one bond is less, then we call that carbon as a dangling state or dangling bond, insufficient bond. Insufficient bond or species are said to be in the higher energy. They will lose the energy in order to gain the stability. That's why nanomaterials, very specifically metals or even metal oxides or anything. For example, gold metal in the bulk is inert. It cannot be attacked by water, moisture, CO, NO, etc. But it will dissolve in aqua regia. But once you make the nanoparticles of gold, these atoms at the surfaces are said to be in the dangling state or dangling bond, high energy, unstable, and it can even catalyze CO, CO2, NO, NO2, oxygen, etc., and become highly catalytic. And as I told in the last class, a new terminology itself has evolved very recently. Nanocatalyst. Catalyst we know, but now we have nanocatalyst. The catalyst, the grain size of the catalyst that is being employed is in the nano size. Nanocatalyst. So anything would like to add from previous class? Or make some comments, clarifications? We'll go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Today is very, very important class. So we are learning about why nanoparticles properties are different from that of the bulk particles. Why melting, just now we have completed. why melting point or phase transition temperatures of materials, nanomaterials are less compared to that of the bulk materials. We have already seen there are 5 reasons. Number of atoms are less, number of surface atoms are high, surface energy is high, increased electrostatic force of attraction, reduced imperfections, material might have moved towards purity, and there is a confinement effect. Today's class is related to confinement effect. So this will help us to understand why optical properties of the nanomaterials are different from that of the bulk materials. The very appearance of the nanomaterials or nanocolloids, nanostructured materials are different from that of the bulk material, whether it is a metal or semiconductor. Gold is in the native color in the bulk, yellow color, but gold loses its native yellow color, becomes red, blue, or even colorless at nanoscale. A big gear of the color can be generated for any semiconductor, or you take any core shell materials, zinc sulfide, cadmium sulfide. If you make core shell, almost big gear of the color it is possible to generate from the same material. You will have to only engineer the band gap. You will have to only engineer the grain size, particle size. So appearance of the materials are different. Means optical properties of the nanoparticles are totally different from that of the bulk materials. So to fully understand the change in the optical properties of the nanostructured materials, we need to know these terminologies as you see in the screen. So what are the terms you are seeing?
Band gap, density of layers, Bohr quantum confinement, and
Band gap, density of states, exciton and exciton Bohr radius, quantum confinement, and energy of confined states, or energy of confined levels, or confined energy levels. So have you heard about these terminologies before? Band gap, I'm sure you would have heard about it. Correct? Where we have band gap? In semiconductors and insulators. If the band gap is between 0 and 3.5 electron volt, semiconductor. Beyond 3.5, 3.6 electron volt, so they are insulators. Metals, they do not have a band gap. Metals do not have a band gap. What are density of states? Refers to energy levels. Collection of energy levels is nothing but density of states. What is an exciton? Or we will come from the reverse. Radius we know. Bohr radius we must be knowing. Bohr radius you know, right? What is Bohr radius? The minimum probable distance present between the electron and the nucleus of hydrogen atom is known as Bohr radius. Here we have exciton and exciton Bohr radius. What is an exciton? We'll come back to that. If anybody would like to respond, you can do so. So then closely connected terminologies, quantum confinement or just confinement or quantum size effect. And what is the energy of those confined levels? What we are going to see. Okay. So can you name any element, any one element? Simple element. Quickly, please. Name any one element, chemical element.
Silicon, sir.
What is it?
Silicon.
Silicon?
Phosphorus.
Silicon. Okay. Any other phosphorus? Any other element?
Germanium.
Germanium. That's so sure all engineers. So all lingering around semiconductors, whether it is going to be N-type, P-type, etc. So for me, if I ask you, If somebody has simple element, I will tell hydrogen. Okay, hydrogen. What is the atomic number of hydrogen? 1.
1.
Yes. What are the energy levels of hydrogen atom? What are the hydrogen energy levels of hydrogen atom? It essentially refers to electronic configurations. What is the electronic configuration of a hydrogen atom? 1s1. 1s1. Okay. That 1s1 is the energy level. What is the atomic number of lithium? 3. What are its energy levels and their electronic configuration? What is the electronic configuration of lithium? 1s2, 2s1. So we have moved from first shell to second shell. You know, these electrons are arranged in the shells at atomic levels. K shell, L shell, M shell, N shell. In each cell, there is a maximum number of electrons that can be accommodated. How much it is? 2n square, where n is non-zero. If n equal to 1, it refers to first cell. What is the first shell? K shell. N equal to 2, second shell, L shell. Third shell, M shell. Fourth shell, N shell. So n varies from 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So according to that formula, 2n square, for example, if n equal to 2, maximum how many number of electrons it can be accommodated? 2n square. If n equal to 2, how many electrons can be there in that shell? What shell it refers to? Second shell. It refers to L shell. Maximum number of electron is 2 into 2 square. 4 into 2. How much? 8. 8. So here we are talking about lithium. Atomic number is 3. So then the electronic energy levels are 1s2, 2s1. Then you can go on. What is the fourth atomic number? Which element corresponds to? Beryllium, carbon, nitrogen. It will go on. These are the energy levels of atoms, single atoms. And the electrons are arranged in the increasing order of energy. Aufbau rule. You would have read it in the 9th standard, 10th standard. 1s2, 2s2, 2, 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3d, 4s2, 4, 3d10, etc. Like that, it will be arranged. And you would have also read about Hund's rule. No two electron will have the identical quantum number. No two electron cannot have identical to quantum number. Okay, so I will not go into those details. It's of no relevance here. Okay, so what are molecules? What are molecules? Combination of atoms, right? How many minimum atoms required to construct a molecule? At least 2. Hydrogen atom. So if you want to make a hydrogen molecule, so you need to have minimum 2 hydrogen atoms. One hydrogen, another hydrogen. Energy levels of hydrogen atoms are 1s to 2s2 or 1s1. Similarly, what are the energy levels of molecules, or very specifically hydrogen molecule, for example? What are they known as? I'm sure you have studied. And they are known as molecular orbitals. The orbitals that are present in the isolated atoms are atomic orbitals. 1s, 2s, 2p, 3s, 3p, 3d, 4s, 4, 4d, 4f, etc. They are the energy levels of atoms. The energy levels of the molecules are sigma 1s, sigma star 1s, sigma 2s, sigma star 2s, sigma 2px, sigma star 2px, pi 2py, pi 2p star y. Those are the energy levels. You know, so molecular orbital diagrams, I'm sure you have studied. In the engineering chemistry, you would have studied. This side they will put one hydrogen or oxygen or carbon or any other atom. This side another hydrogen or any such element they will put it. How many atoms, what is the atomic number, they will put it here. Then they will arrange the molecular orbitals like this. This is an oxygen. So for simplicity, one s orbital is removed, excluded. So 2s, 2p. Oxygen, what is the atomic number? 8. What is the electronic configuration of hydrogen oxygen atom? 1s2, 2s2, 2p4. So 1s is removed for simplicity. So 2s filled, 2p4, 2 electron, another 2 electron. There is one oxygen atom. You take another identical oxygen atom and you allow them to undergo hybridization. You get oxygen molecule. These are the energy levels of oxygen molecules. What are they? Sigma, sigma star, pi, pi star, sigma, sigma star. Very specifically, sigma 2s, sigma star 2s, sigma 2px, pi 2py, pi star 2py, pi star 2px. So yeah, sigma star 2px. These are the energy levels. And these orbitals are known as molecular orbitals. These orbitals are known as atomic orbitals. And these are the energy levels of atoms. These are the energy levels of molecules. If there is a bond present between the two oxygen atoms, and it will form a molecule. It is possible to predict whether oxygen molecule will form or not. If the bond order is non-zero, then the molecule will be formed. For bond order for oxygen molecule is 2, definitely oxygen molecule is forming practically. And we have oxygen molecule in the nature, we can create or available in the nature. Similarly, this is the electronic energy levels of lithium. So lithium having atomic number 3, electronic configurations are 2s, 1s2, 2s1. Atomic energy levels. There is another lithium. You can allow them to undergo hybridization. Sigma 1s, sigma star 1s, sigma 2s, sigma star 2s. These are the energy levels of lithium atoms, lithium molecules, for example. Excuse me. If the bond order is non-zero, lithium molecule will be formed. If bond order is 0, no molecule will be formed. So we have seen the energy levels of atoms and molecules. Energy levels of atoms and molecules. How are they? They are highly discrete. This is lithium atom. The energy levels are 2s, 2p, 1s, 2s, 2p. It is discrete. What is discrete? What is the term discrete mean? Separate. Separate entity. Whereas in the bulk, the energy levels are highly continuous. So separate energy levels, we call it as discrete energy levels, atoms. Then lithium molecule, here also the energy levels are discrete, not continuous. Let's say you combine lithium 3 lithium atoms to make Li3. The energy levels are little increased because one more lithium is added. Let's consider 25 lithium. So still energy levels are increased. In 1 lithium, we have 2 energy levels. In 25 lithium, 25 into 2, 50 energy levels. 25 energy levels here, 25 energy levels here. But in a bulk material, we will have at least a 10 power 23 number of atoms. In this case, lithium atoms. Then 10 power 23 number of bonding orbitals, 10 power 23 non-bonding anti-bonding orbitals. How many? 10 power 23. So many energy levels. The discrete energy levels become continuum, and there is a formation of bands in the solids. And band theory predicts that. Band theory provides explanation. Depending on the spacings, whether with space or no space, we classify the materials into three types. If there is a spacing between the valence band and the conduction band, they are either semiconductor or insulators, depending on the value of the band gap. If there are no band gap, it is a metal. And you see here, 10 power 20 number of lithium atoms are combined. So many bonding molecular orbitals, so many anti-bonding molecular orbitals. There are so many number of energy levels are there, and they overlap and make a band. 2s band, 3s, 2p band, and there is no spacing between them, and zero band gap, and it is a metal. And it is a metal. This is another way of representations. Electronic band theory predicts that, provides the reason how the band is formed. This is how the band is formed in solid. From the atoms, from the discrete energy levels. So if several atoms are combined, it forms molecules. Several molecules are held together, and there is increased number of density of states, increased energy levels, or the density of states are very high, and they form eventually continued energy levels, continuous energy levels, continuous energy levels. And if there are no band gap, if there are no separation between the valence band and the conduction band, all the molecular orbitals align and make a conduction valence band. All the anti-bonding molecular orbitals combine and make a valence band. And if there is no separation, they are metals. If there is a separation between them, they create either semiconductor or insulators. And we have three types of materials based on that. You see here, there is a large density of state in the case of bulk material. And in the case of atoms, very, very less density of states. What are the density of state, or what is the density of states? The number of energy levels available for the electron to occupy is the density of state. What is the density of states for a lithium atom or lithium molecule? Sigma and sigma star, 2 density of states. Electron can occupy here, whereas electron can occupy here. What is the density of lithium metal? Let's say 1 gram of lithium metal. How many atoms will be there? Minimum 10 power 23. And 10 power 23 number of anti-bonding orbitals, 10 power 23 number of bonding orbitals. So many options are available for these electrons to occupy. So density of state is very high, and it is continuum. The take-home point is the energy levels of atoms and molecules are discrete, separate, whereas the energy levels in the bulk are continuum. The energy levels of the bulk material in solid state are continuum. And based on the energy levels or the separation, we have 3 materials. If there are no separation, there is no separation between the valence band and the conduction band, and it is a metal. If there is a separation, so there is specific number, so 3.6, 3.5 or less is in semiconductor, and above 3.56, so it is insulate. How the conduction takes place in semiconductors or insulators for that matter? How the conduction takes place in metals, we have already seen. Are you with me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
How the conduction takes place in metal? There is a pool of electrons collection of electrons. So many electrons are there, and those electrons are free to move, and it makes the movement. And in each movement, they meet their friend and go to KFC, McDonald's, or CFC, wherever. And there is a continuity is established, and there is a conduction established, and we name it as a conductor, metals. How the conduction take place in semiconductors? And we know that in semiconductor, there is a separation between the valence band and the conduction band. And very low temperature, there is no possibility for the electron present in the ground state to pick up the energy and go to the excited state. Very low temperature, frozen. Energy is not sufficient. But if energy is applied, either thermal or electrical or radiation energy, the electron present in the valence band acquire the energy from the sources and get excited, will go to the excited state and stay there for a while, have a nice nap there until it lost its lifetime. Unfortunately, it cannot take long snap or nap. It has to relax. It has to come back. It has to come back to the ground state. It can come back in two ways. Either radiative decay, non-radiative decay. What is radiative decay? It will emit the light. What is non-radiative decay? As the name implies, it will not emit the light. But it does something. It will heat up the material. So once the sufficient energy is illuminated or supplied to the semiconductor or insulator, the electron in the ground state picks up the energy, go to the excited state. Once the electron is removed from its position, electron having the negative charge and is removed from its place, automatically, so the position will be, the hole will be created. Electron having negative charge is removed, so automatically we designate it as a positive and we term it as a hole. And the electron has gone to the excited state. And this is a material dimension. And we are talking about bulk material now. What is the rough dimension of bulk material or grain size of bulk material? Few micron, 10 micron, 20 micron, 30 micron. And an exciton is formed. Now we will define what is an exciton. What is an exciton? The bound state of electron and hole. The bound state of electron and hole is known as exciton. When it happens, the electron in the ground state is picking up the energy from the source and goes to the excited state. This is negative charge, and automatically from where the electron is lifted is a hole, positive charge. And there is an electrostatic force of attraction between them. One is negative, another one is positive. They make a good friendship. And they get along the material. They revolve, they roam whole Pondicherry, Chennai, or whatever the city. Because the material dimension is within their probable distance. Within the probable distance. That distance is known as exciton-Bohr radius. That distance is known as the separation between the electron and the hole, or the average distance or the radius present between the bound state of in the bound state of electron and hole is known as exciton-Bohr radius. And this is highly characteristic of the semiconductors and insulators. Okay, so the bound state of electron and hole is known as exciton, and the radius present between them is known as exciton-Bohr radius. And they cannot get along always. They have to come to Pondicherry campus, university campus. They cannot be always roaming around the Pondicherry. They have to come to campus. Electron has to come back to its ground state because there is a lifetime for that. Depending on the material and the excitation process, there is a definite lifetime. It may be 10 power minus 7 seconds, microseconds, femtoseconds, or milliseconds. Depending on the dopant or material type of excitation, it has to relax. If it relaxes by radiative emission, a color will be seen. Semiconductor will show some color. Emission color, the color that you see for insulators and semiconductors is the emission color, not the absorption color. If not emission, radiative emission, if it leads to heating of the system, and we call it as a non-radiative emission. The very solar cell is based on how effectively you can separate this electron and hole will give the efficiency of the solar cell. How efficiently you can separate the electron and hole once the excitation is done will give you the efficiency of the solar cell or photovoltaic cell. And you separate it. You convert separate the electron and hole. Larger the electron, higher the conversion efficiency, higher the current generation in solar cells or dye-sensitized solar cells. And this is bulk material. The electron revolves all along the material, and there is no restriction for the movement of these charge carriers or the exciton or electron and hole. Because so the mean pre-path is much less than the material dimensions. Mean pre-path of exciton Bohr radius. Exciton Bohr radius is much less compared to the material dimension, and it can move all along the material, and you have a conduction. I will come back to this mean pre-path of metals later. This is, I should have shown this. Yes. So you take a semiconductor, illuminate it, for example, electron present in the ground state picks up the energy, sufficient energy. That energy must be equal or little higher than this band gap energy. So electron will go to the excited state, hole will be formed, and this bound state of electron and hole is known as exciton. And it is a material characteristic. There is a separation, definite separation. And this is a band gap, valence band, the conduction band, we know. And you can quantify this exciton Bohr radius, and is related to this alpha. Alpha is equal to kappa me by mu into A0. Alpha is exciton Bohr radius, and exciton is formed when a semiconductor or an insulator is illuminated with sufficient energy, thermal radiation or solar radiation or electrical energy or anything. And the exciton is formed, and there is a separation between the electron and the hole, and it is given by this equation, standard equation. Alpha is equal to kappa me by mu into A0, where A is alpha is a exciton Bohr radius, K is a dielectric constant or dielectric scaling factor, me is a mass of electron, mu is reduced mass of electron and hole, and A0 is this your Bohr radius. What is Bohr radius? We have already seen. The most probable distance present between the nucleus and the electron in the hydrogen atom is known as Bohr radius, and it is a constant and is equal to 0.529 angstrom. 0.529 angstrom or 0.0529 nanometer. And it's possible to quantify it. Niels Bohr quantified it. So that is related to electron, dielectric constant, Planck's constant, and the relative permittivity, etc. If you put all these numbers, so in proper unit, you'll be able to get this number, 0.529 angstrom, 0.0529 nanometer. Hydrogen atom. Now we are talking about semiconductors. Silicon, germanium, phosphorus, cadmium sulfide, selenide, oxide, anything. And it is highly characteristic. Exciton Bohr radius. So in the bulk, the material dimension is beyond micron or larger than the exciton bore radius, and the exciton is formed, and they will be revolving all along the material. They will be revolving all along the material until when? Until they relax, until they lose their stability. What is that? Lifetime. Okay, so until they will be stable until they have this lifetime. Now the question is, what happens to this exciton bore radius, or what happens to the exciton at a nanoscale? Whether the exciton property is same as that in the bulk and nano, or is it is modified, or is it restricted? The mobility of the charge carriers or the mobility of the electron hole pair or exciton is restricted or modified in the nanoscale is the question at nanomaterials. So this is the schematic of a bulk material. Material dimension is a few micron, and an exciton is formed and is highly characteristic of the material, and exciton bore radius is this much. And now you chop off these bulk materials into nano. So at least one of the dimensions or direction must be cut into nanoscale, or two dimensions, or completely all three dimensions. Let's assume like this. You have chop off all the three dimensions directions into nano, and you have obtained from such a large bulk material into, assume that, nano materials. All the three dimensions are confined, chopped into nano. So now you supply the energy to these nanomaterials. The same semiconductor. The conduction again responsible by the electron and hole here. There must be a formation of exciton because they are semiconductor. If sufficient energy is supplied, and it should form a exciton. How exciton can form? The electron in the ground state will pick up the energy from the source and go to the excited state, and there is a creation of hole in the ground state and electron in the excited state, and this bound state is known as exciton. So now, what are the opportunities available for this exciton? Whether they have the same opportunity or same freedom to move all along the material, or will it be restricted? What would be your response? Assume that this is a bulk material, gadmium sulfide, and you have illuminated, light is allowed to fall on this, sufficient energy equal or higher than the band gap of gadmium sulfide. Electron in the ground state picks up the energy, go to the excited state, and there is a formation of exciton is formed. Let's say exciton is formed here, and it is having some radius. That radius is much less than that of this edge size material dimensions, this size, or this size. And it can move all along the material, It can move always under motion. And then finally decay, either radiative or non-radiative. Now, you have taken these bulk materials, subdivided into nano, maybe something like this, very small. Again, you are illuminating. Same semiconductor. There is a valence band conduction band. Okay, so if the illuminated energy is higher than sufficient to excite the electron from the ground state to excited state, again, exciton will be formed here. Whether the exciton will have the same freedom that the exciton formed in the bulk, the exciton formed here, or will there be difference? What would be your response? So you have been freely let into the Pondicherry University campus always, and due to lockdown, because of COVID, you are asked to stay back only in the Department of Green Energy Technology. You are not allowed to go. Whether you will have the same freedom that you had before lockdown or after lockdown. Will there be any difference? Definitely there is a difference. There is a restriction in the movement of charge carriers at nanoscale. They cannot go out of the material. Charge carriers or the exciton cannot go out of the material. They cannot go beyond. They are not. It's not possible to go beyond the department, or it's not. They cannot exit the material. They should be within the material only. You think the same freedom that this exciton had and this one? No. The mobility, dimension, direction, velocity, or direction, everything is different here. And we call this state as a confined state. Very specifically, quantum confinement. And the effect leading to this is known as quantum confinement effect. This quantum confinement occurs because of the engineering of the grain size. Decreased grain size, or you will see that as a consequence, there are great changes occurs in the band gap. There is a development of Kubo gap. As a result, the electrical properties or electronic properties are different. As a result, there is a change in the optical property. And it is possible to quantify this exciton Bohr radius. For example, silicon, semiconductors. Using this standard equation. Bohr radius is this 0.529 angstrom. Exciton Bohr radius is similar to that. Alpha is equal to K or epsilon A0 divided by mu. So mu is reduced mass. So which is nothing but mu or m star. M mass of electron, mass of hole divided by mass of electron plus hole into the rest mass of electron, and that is about 0.15 ME. ME is mass of electron, 9.1 into 10 power minus 31 kilograms. So it happens to be for silicon about 4.2 nanometer. So exciton Bohr radius of silicon is 4.2 nanometer. What does it mean? Can anyone respond?
Yes, sir.
It means that to see the nanoscale properties for silicon, you have to make the grain size of silicon equal or less than that of 4.2 nanometer. Then only you can able to see the real nanoscale properties. So there will be a change in the band gap, there will be a change in the conductivity, there will be a change in the optical properties. And it is highly characteristic. For gadmium selenide, it is 6.1 nanometer. Gadmium sulfide, 3.4 nanometer. Indium stillbium semiconductor, 78.5 nanometer. This is an angstrom, so one order less, so 78.5 nanometer. That is why when we define nanomaterials, nanomaterials are materials having the grain size generally from 1 to 100 nanometers. It's not necessary that material having 80 nanometer will show change in the band gap. No, it is highly characteristic of the material. You see gadmium selenide, unless you make this we call it as a room size, the minimum room size that one has to make to see the nanoscale properties, or the minimum grain size one has to make to see the nanoscale properties. For example, gadmium selenide, you have to make 6.1. Indium stillbium, there are a lot of room or larger room. Even if you make 78.5 nanometer, it will show the nanoscale properties. That's what it means. And for gallium arsenide, it is 21.6. And zinc sulfide, very low. There are no rooms. 1.8. You have to go very low. Then only we will be able to see the nanoscale property. And the another point is, and this room size or the grain size or particle size, it need not be in all the 3 dimensions or directions. It can be in any one of the dimensions or directions. At least in that direction or dimension, there will be a restriction in the movement of charge carriers. Okay, so we know we can classify the non-structured materials into 3D, 2D, 1D based on the confinement dimensions, restrictions. Okay, is it clear? Anybody would like to ask anything? Did I make clear? Is it convincing? Please respond.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have seen so far for semiconductors and insulators. Similar thing is possible for semiconductor insulators. Let's see whether there is a restriction in the movement or mobility of charge carrier in the metals. What is the charge carriers or what is the charge carrier of metals? Electrons, we have already seen. This is a piece of metal, let's say gold, silver, platinum, lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, whatnot. What is the size? Grain size? Micron, 10 micron, 20 micron. And as we know that there are collection of electrons and they are very free electrons. No, they are under high liberty. There is no lockdown for them, the electrons in the metals. They are free to move from New York to London, London to Chennai or Tokyo or whatever. They are free to move all along the city, all along the nation, all along the earth. And whenever it makes movement, definitely these electrons make a handshake with his friend. The average distance traveled by the electron is known as mean free path. You believe it or not, it is a material characteristic, typically few nanometers. Typically few nanometers. Now you take this bulk metal, transform into nano. Now the grain size is reduced to nano size, typically less than or equal to that of the electron mean free path. Whether the electron present in this metal, this nanomaterial will have the same freedom as that of the electron in the bulk, or will there be any restriction or confinement? And I already told that the electron in the metals in the bulk are said to be having a drunken man walk. The electron do not know or does not know where it will move next. This direction, here or here. Drunken man walk. You see here, zigzag, drunken man walk. Whenever he makes or the electron makes the movement, it meets his friend. Continuity is established in the bulk. Whereas the same electron, but now the grain size is reduced to less than that of the electron mean free path. No doubt, the electron still can make the movement, but with restricted. How it is restricted? You see here, for example, you concentrate an electron here, it meets here, then in next movement, it goes here and will hit at the surface. Will hit at the surface. Or the next moment, let's say if it goes here, the electron will hit at the surface. Here it doesn't. If here it makes, it will hit at the surface. Here it will hit at the surface. Here no. Here will hit at the surface. And you see here, because of the reduction in the grain size, the charge carrier present in the metals, non-structured material, will hit at the surface when it makes a movement. Once the electron will hit at the surface, it will lose its energy, momentum, velocity. Once the moving electron loses the energy, momentum, velocity, everything, so there will be a reduction in the conductivity. There will be reduction in the conductivity. And we call this as a confinement effect in the case of metals. Quantum size effect. There will be obvious reduction in the metallic conductivity because of the reduction in the grain size, engineering the grain size. So we can have two types of confinement in this case. I hope I explained what is confinement. Restriction in the movement of charge carriers due to reduction in the grain size or particle size is known as confinement effect. I'm sure by now you'll be able to agree with me. We can have a very strong confinement or weak confinement, depending on the nanostructured materials. So I have given here 3 types of nanostructured materials. What are the 3 types of nanostructured materials I have given here? Name it, please. 3 types of nanomaterials I have given here. What? Name it, please. Are you seeing my screen? Or am I lost? Oh, I am there. I'm very much there.
Quantum.
Yes, sir. Visible, sir.
Quantum wire.
Please respond, na. So respond, na. I'm not making very complicated, and the topic also not very complicated. What you are seeing, you please tell. 3 nanostructures I have given here. What is this?
Quantum well, nano wire, we can say nano layer, and quantum dots, sir.
Quantum confinement dimension, sir.
You are seeing nanofilm, nanowire, and this is quantum dots. Which will have large density of state. Somebody's my voice is on, so maybe you are talking, that's why. Which will have
Quantum
more
well,
density of states. Quantum dots.
Quantum well, sir. Quantum well.
Okay. Anybody else? Then other option is nanofilm only. Okay, let me ask. Among these 3 nanostructured materials, which material is more closer to bulk?
Nanofilm, sir.
Nanofilm, right? Exactly. Because 2 dimensions are till micron. Only thickness is nano. This is more closer to bulk. Whereas nano wires, nano rods, only 1 dimension or direction is micron or bulk size. The rest of 2 dimensions directions are nano. In 2 dimensions, the charge carrier is restricted. Whereas here, only one dimension, maybe in this direction, assume that this is a thin film. This direction, no restriction. This direction, no restriction. But only in this direction, there is a restriction. But whereas here, restriction in this direction, restriction in this direction, no restriction in this direction. Whereas spherical particles, assume that this is nano, diameter is few nanometer, 1 to 100 nanometer, 10 nanometer, 20 nanometer diameter. The restriction will be in how many dimensions or directions?
Restricted in all the
Restricted in all the dimensions. You understood? What is density of state?
collection of energy.
Yes, collection of energy levels. The number of energy levels available for the electron to occupy. Is there decrease in the density of state or increase in the density of state, or remains the density of state remains same in all these three materials compared to the bulk? In bulk, we have large density of state. We told that it is a continuum. Why? Number of atoms, ions, molecules are very large. How much? How many? 10 power 23 minimum. Those many bonding orbitals, those many anti-bonding orbitals, they overlap and the energy levels are continuum because the density of states are large. The number of energy level for the electron to occupy in the bulk material is large. DOS is very large. Now we have taken that bulk material and one of the dimension is restricted to nano. Thickness is restricted to nano. The rest of the dimension is still maintained. Then you have made it as a in another structure. nanowires or nanotube or nanorods like this. Only one direction is maintained, mobility, another direction is. So the number of atoms, ions in this structure will be same as that of in this structure or will be different? Different. And in the case of spherical particle, so forget about the size. The number of atoms, ions, molecules will be same as that of the thin film or nanowire will be different or same or increase. Number of atoms when you move from bulk to nano will decrease or increase or remain same. It's one of the competitive exam question. It will decrease because total number of atoms, ions, molecules decreases when we move from bulk to nano. So then in that case, in which nanostructure there will be a more decrease in the number of atoms or molecules, ions? Obviously, which nanostructure? Quantum dots. Because all the three dimensions are reduced in nano. So nanofilm will be more closer to bulk. This will be away. This is very away. So now you can tell which nanostructure material will have the large density of state among these three. Someone already told that it is in the quantum dot. Someone else told that nanowire. Now you tell me, you want to retain the statement or you want to correct it? Which nanostructure will have more density of state?
First one, sir.
That is nanofilm, right? Because only one dimension is reduced. Still two dimensions are maintained. It's obvious. Density of state is very less for quantum dots. Little increase it, and this is more closer to bulk. Bulk material will have large density of state, or the take-home point is density of state decreases when we move from bulk to nano. And in the case of quantum dots, density of state is very least. As the electron or the charge carrier mobility is restricted in all the three dimensions or directions, there will be a strong confinement effect in quantum dots. Whereas the restriction or the restriction of the charge carriers in the thin film is only restricted to one dimensions. All the other two dimensions are allowed to freely move. There will be a weak confinement effect. It means the nanoscale properties of thin film will be different. Nanoscale properties of quantum dot will be different. Let it be the same material. And the nanowires properties will be in between. So based on the confinement effect, we can have weak confinement, strong confinement. And this confinement effect has several consequences. Because of the confinement effect or change in the density of state, there will be changes in the band gap. I think I should specifically tell that there will be increase in the band gap as a consequence of quantum confinement effect or size effect. Not only that, there will be a development of Kubo gap even in metals. As a consequence, there will be a change in the optical property as well as electrical conductivity. Why? Because electrical properties are directly linked with the band gap. Smaller the band gap, higher the conductivity. Larger the band gap, lower the conductivity. So smaller the band gap, energy required to excite the electron is less. Larger the band gap, energy required to excite the electron is large. And consequently, emission energy or emission frequency will be different. And when you will have a larger band gap, if you decrease the band gap, if you decrease the grain size. Smaller grain size will have larger band gap. We call this as a band gap engineering or grain size engineering. You take silicon or gadmium sulfide or selenide, you make 100 nanometer. Let's assume for simplicity spherical particle. Then you make 60 nanometer, 40 nanometer, 20 nanometer, 10 nanometer, 1 nanometer. All will have different band gap. 1 nanometer gadmium sulfide will have larger band gap compared to the 100 nanometer gadmium sulfide nanoparticles. 100 nanometer will be more closer to bulk. 1 nanometer gadmium sulfide will have very large band gap, sometimes double. And this technology is known as band gap engineering. You will engineer the optical properties. You will engineer the electrical properties. And we deal with the nanomaterials. And it is fascinating. And most exploited properties, optical properties. The most exploited properties, optical property. The take-home point so far is there is decrease in the number of atoms when we move from bulk to nano. As a consequence, the density of states are decreasing. As a consequence, there is increase in the band gap. There may be an increase in the development of QUBO gap. These increased band gap results in the different optical properties as well as the electrical properties. Applicable to all. Even metals may develop a QUBO gap, or even metals may develop a band gap. It is highly material characteristic. It depends on mean free path of electrons, exciton Bohr radius for semiconductors and insulators. Very important. If you understand these terminologies, you understand this unit or this whole course. So let us concentrate now the energy of these electrons or the energy of confined states. And we know that electron has the dual characters like waves. So photon has wave character and a particle character. Similarly, electron also. So wave character and particle characters. So particle character is related to momentum, wave character is related to wavelength, similar to photons. Whether the energy of the electron remains same in the bulk and in the confined state or different is the question. So you have a bulk material and you subdivide it into nano. At least one of the dimensions or directions, and there is a confinement. And what is the energy of those confined energy levels? Or the energy levels present in the confined state is known as confined energy. We have already defined the density of state. The number of energy states available for the electron to occupy is known as density of state. And it is possible to quantify that energy using this equation. This equation is known as eigenvalue equation or eigenvalue. E is equal to pi square h cross square divided by 8 m square m star a square into k square. And this formula or this equation is arrived, you believe me, it is arrived from here. This equation is known as Schrodinger equation. And typically you can write it for maybe one-dimensional box or two-dimensional box, three-dimensional box. What are these one-dimensional box and the three-dimensional box, two-dimensional box? So if the dimension of the box is, you consider only one direction, it is one dimension. Or if you consider in 2 dimensions, and it is a 2 dimension. Or if you consider in 3 dimensions, 3 Cartesian coordinates, so you designate in terms of x, y, z. If you designate either x, either y, or either z, then one-dimensional box. If all the three, if you consider, it is three-dimensional box. For simplicity, we will consider one-dimensional box. So electron is assumed to travel in this direction only. And what is the energy of that energy level? Is given by this equation. E is equal to pi square h cross square by 2 m star a square into k square. This k is k space. If it is generally it is n x square n y square plus n z square. So if you consider 3 dimension, if you consider 2 dimension, you consider nx ny square. Or if you consider one dimensional box, simplicity, it is only nx square or ny square nz square. Either way is okay. But the important point is n is an integer. It will vary from 1 and above, not 0 and above. So n can never be 0 in the confined energy. And it is typically known as quantum number. So you can simply replace, if for a one-dimensional box, instead of k square, you can replace n square or very specifically nx square. Simply, it is n square. And this h cross, here is h cross square. H cross is h by 2 pi. H by 2 pi. Then what is h cross square? H square divided by 4 pi square. So if you replace this h cross by h by 2 pi, then you simplify, you will get n square h square divided by 8m a square. Some people designate a, some people designate r, l. For me it is same. Where n is quantum number, vary from 1, 2, 3, etc. H is a Planck's constant, 6.626 into 10 power minus 30, 34, or I think it is 34 joules second per Kelvin. And m is mass of electron, not the mass of the particle or the material, mass of the electron. A is the nanoscale size, or room size, or particle size, grain size. If you know all these parameters, it is possible to estimate what is the energy of state. What is the energy of the particle? Here the particle in the case of metals is electron. Maybe in the case of electron in the semiconductor, electron and hole. And you get much more information using this E. It is possible to estimate the energy of these states using this equation. So take down and try to estimate. Calculate the ground state energy and the first excited state energy of electrons in 2 nanometer germanium telluride nanorod. And go on to estimate the energy difference. That will give the band gap. So in this numerical problem, there are 2-3 new terminologies. Ground state, you know. Okay. Ground state energy. What is excited state? Excited state. First and excited state, second and excited state, third, etc. They correspond to these numbers. Ground state means always n equal to 1. Then the first excited state is n corresponds to 2. The next excited state is n equal to 3, etc. So when I say ground state, it means quantum number corresponding to not 0. Please remember, quantum number corresponding to n equal to 1. So you are asked to estimate the energy of the electron in the ground state and in the first excited state in electron holes, and take the difference. The difference will give you what? I think you should respond. You have a ground state and a first excited state, and it is possible to estimate the energy of this ground state, and it is also possible to estimate the energy of the excited state, and the difference will give you band gap. And this is a semiconductor. Yes. And this is a very valuable information you get from this eigen equation. You should remember that E equal to n square h square divided by 8 mu or mu8 m a square. If n equal to 1, it will become 1 square. H is Planck's constant, 6.626 into 10 power minus 31, I think, or 31 or 34 joule second per mole. And m is mass of electron, 9.1 into 10 power minus 31 kilograms. And A is room size or grain size or particle size. And in nanometer, let's say 10 nanometer. So 10 into 10 power minus 9 meter. And you will get in joule, convert into electron volt. So by multiplying, I think some multiplication factor is there. So I think this you had 1 joule is equal to 6.24 electron volt. So then how many joules you will get? You multiply with this number, you will be able to get the energy of states. And you take the difference and you will get the band gap. Is it possible to do? Will you do?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. So if you have done, maybe you take this another problem. An electron is confined to a 10 nanometer thin film of silicon. Assuming that the semiconductor can be adequately described by a one-dimensional quantum well. One-dimensional quantum well. Thickness is nano. This is bulk. This also bulk. And you are asked to consider the charge carrier electron here. And it is confined within this well. And what is the energy of that electron? Or very specifically, what is the lowest possible energy the electron can have it in electron volt? It should have been electron. This is schematically like this, a thin film of silicon. And this is thickness. What is its thickness? 10 nanometer. This length, this width, we don't bother. This is only 10 nanometer. What is the lowest possible energy? What is that term lowest possible energy mean? Ground state energy. Lowest energy is ground state energy. What is the n corresponding to? One. N corresponding to 1. So according to that equation, it will become E1 is equal to 1 square h square divided by 8 into 9.1 into 10 power minus 31 into 10 into 10 power minus 9 square. You simplify, you will get in joules. So 1 joule is 6.24 into 10 power 18 electron volt. So many joules you are getting, you multiply them and you are going to get lowest possible energy. That is nothing but ground state energy. And if you are asked to estimate the first excited state energy, what will you do? Instead of n equal to 1, you will take n equal to 2. N square, 2 square h square divided by 8m a square. I have that problem. A particle in a one-dimensional box has a minimum allowed energy 2.5 electron volt. If you understood so far, you should be able to tell what is that 2.5 is known as. And what is the next higher energy it can have? If the particle is an electron, what is the room size or particle size or box size, or what is the grain size? So due to lack of time, I am skipping. You please take time and work out these numerical problems. Come back if you encounter any problem. So a particle in a one-dimensional box has a minimum allowed energy 2.5 electron volt. What is the next higher energy it can have? Without doing anything, you can tell now itself. If you understood whatever so far I have taught. Lowest energy is 2.5 electron volt. What is the next higher energy it can have? Silent, complete silent. What is the lowest energy mean or minimum energy? Ground state energy, right? What
Yes,
is
sir.
ground state? What is ground state? Quantum number or n corresponding to 0 or 1?
1, sir.
1. It cannot be 0. Quantum number cannot be 0. This principal quantum number. N correspond to 1. And its energy is how much? 2.5 electron volt. What is the immediate excited energy level? N corresponding to?
1.
No, 2. 1 is ground state energy, already over. Excited energy is n equal to 2. The second excited energy level is n equal to 2, n equal to 3, n equal to 4, etc., etc. So the question is, ground minimum allowed energy is, ground state energy is 2.5. What is the next higher energy it can have? At least now you should be able to tell.
The ground state, sir, the quantum number is 2.
How much? N equal to 2. So in this equation, n equal to 2. All other thing remains same. And that is about 2.5. How much it will be? Even now? Oh, please come on. Usually 1 or 2 students respond. It will be 2.5 into 2 square. It will be 2.5 into 4. So it will be 2.5 into 4. How much it is? (2.5 into 4) how much?
10, sir.
10 electron
sir.
volt. 10 electron volt. It should not require all these explanations. You should have told immediately if you understood properly. Okay, anyway, so the next higher energy level is 10 electron volt. Okay, ground state energy is 2.5. So then I can ask you, what is the band gap?
$2.5.
How much?
2.5 electron volts.
Is that 2.5? Please check. Okay. So then what is this problem? How wide is the box size? Now you know E is given 2.5. You are asked to estimate A. All other things are known. That will give you the room size or box size or grain size. Then next one, calculate the absorption maximum of beta carotene having conjugation length of 18.5 angstrom using a one-dimensional box. All informations are given. Have you heard about carotene? Beta carotene, where you heard? Where it is responsible? What is responsible for this? It's available in carrot. It's responsible for the color for the carrot. It absorbs some characteristic wavelength and gives some color to the carrot. And it's a part of vitamin A that we consume, and it is good for eye. And this beta carotene happen to be some organic material, organic compound. And sometimes they have a double bond. And there is a continuous or intermittent band, double bonds. And we call it as a conjugation. There is a long conjugation. Several carbon CH2, CH, something is going on. And since this is a beta carotene, there is a definite conjugation length. And it is about 18.5 angstrom or 1.8 nanometer. And you are asked to estimate the absorption maximum. What is this absorption maxima? This is a molecule. Beta carotene is a molecule. Okay, so a molecule has atoms. Atom has atomic energy level. Molecule has molecular energy levels. What are the energy levels of molecule? Bonding molecular orbitals, anti-bonding molecular orbitals. Bonding molecular orbitals, anti-bonding molecular orbitals. For example, you consider this molecule. What is this molecule? Can anyone name? CH2
Ether.
double bond CH2. Ethylene. I'm sure you have studied. Ethylene. For simplicity, I have taken only this double bond. Double bond. So in a double bond, there can be a 1 pi bond. There can be 1 pi bond, 1 sigma bond. There is only one double bond here in this molecule. And so we have a bonding molecular orbitals, anti-bonding molecular orbitals. Okay, so this is more like a ground state, and this is first excited state. Ground state or minimum or lowest, n corresponds to 1. Higher energy level, excited energy level, first excited energy level, n corresponds to 2. And this separation, what would you call in this molecule? If it is a solid material, this separation is the band gap. Okay, now we'll come to this molecule. CH2, CH, CH, CH2. I'm sure some of you or a few of you can name this molecule. Butene or butadiene. There are 2 double bonds here. There is a double bond here. There is a double bond here. So for simplicity, I have taken only double bonds. And it's a corresponding molecular orbitals. There are 2. There is only one double bond here. There is a 1 energy level I have taken. Here there are 2 double bonds I have taken. So eventually 2 bonding molecular orbitals. HOMO, highest occupied molecular orbitals, filled with electrons. Here only 1 double bond. Highest occupied orbital is only 1. Here 2 double bonds and 2. And when we have a 2 molecular bonding orbitals, there will be a corresponding 2 anti-bonding molecular orbitals. And their numbers are, this is the lowest energy bonding molecular orbitals, n corresponds to 2. The next, the higher anti-bonding molecular orbital, n corresponds to 3, 4, etc. Similarly, so if I have 3 double bonds, it will be like this. N corresponds to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. The lowest energy is between n corresponds to 3 and 4, because these 3 are excited state. These 2 are ground state. Within the ground state, 3 energy level. Within the excited state, there are 3 energy levels. This is the minimum separation. Then 4 double bonds, like this I have. This is the minimum energy. Like this, in beta carotene, okay? So like this in beta carotene, if you see the molecular structure, this is the structure of beta carotene. There is a double bond here, there is a double bond here, there is a double bond here. How many double bonds it is possible? 11 double bonds are there. 11 double bonds are there. When we have 2 double bonds, we have energy levels here. When we have 3 double bonds, we have energy levels like this. When we have 4 double bonds, we have energy levels here. And when you shine the light on this molecule, the electron in the lowest ground state, I mean in this highest occupied molecular orbitals, will pick up, go to the excited state, and will return, will show different color. And you are asked to estimate what is the wavelength required to excite in the beta carotene. That is what. So how many double bonds? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 double bonds. Then how many bonding orbitals? N equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 bonding orbitals. 12th will be anti-bonding orbitals. 13, 14, 15, maximum how many it can be? 22. How? When we have 2 double bonds, So energy levels are n equal to 1, 2 in the ground state, 3, 4 are in the excited state. When we have 3 double bonds, 3 bonding, 3 anti-bonding. When I have 11 double bonds, 11 bonding, 11 anti-bonding. The lowest energy levels will be between n corresponds to 11 and the highest, first highest energy is n corresponds to 12. Then the electron transition should take place between n corresponding to 11 and 12. So then what is the minimum energy? N corresponds to 11. 11 square h square divided by 8 m a square. The next higher energy is 12. N corresponds to 12. 12 square h square divided by 8 m a square. And the difference is delta E. 12 square minus 11 square into h square divided by 8 m a square. H you know, m you know, a is this one. 18.5 angstrom or 1.85 nanometer. 1.85 nanometer. So if you work out with the proper unit, you will be able to get, so it is about 380. 480. About 470 practically observed, it will work out to be 480 nanometer. And this is characteristic of this material. Practical observed absorption is 470. If you estimate, it will come about 479 or 480. You please take time and work out. We are still in the density of state. Maybe another 10 minutes. So now I'm sure you'll be able to define what is the density of state. And it deals with the solid state or condensed matter. Solid state is nothing but condensed. The ions, atom, molecules are condensed in the solid state. So density of state refers to the number of energy levels or the number of states available per unit energy for the electron to occupy is the DOS. And this is decreasing when we move from bulk to nano. And it is very much less in the case of quantum dots. Little higher in the case of nanowires, nanotube. Little higher, more higher in the case of quantum well. And large in the bulk. And there is no restriction in the movement of charge carriers in the bulk. But there is a restriction in the movement of charge carriers. Depending on the type of the nanostructure, we have a weak confinement, strong confinement. As a consequence, there is an increase in the band gap. There may be a development in the band gap, in the Kubo gap. These are the energy levels of atoms. As we know that already, the energy levels are discrete, separate. It is possible to see the Kubo gap. I will define soon what is the Kubo gap. And in the bulk, there is no band gap. There is no separation. There is no Kubo gap. Valence band and conduction bands are overlapped in the case of metals. If there is a separation, then semiconductor, that is different. Now, you take that bulk material, go on chopping it, subdividing 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension. 100 nanometer, 20 nanometer, 10 nanometer, 5 nanometer, 1 nanometer. And see what happens to the number of atoms or ions, molecules, and by band gap, whatnot. So bulk material, number of atoms are large. In the nanomaterials, number of atoms are less. So total number of atoms are decreasing. Now I'm sure you'll agree with me, density of state will be less. As the density of state will be less, the energy levels will no longer be as that of the bulk. It will be more closer to atomic nature or molecular nature, whose energy levels are discrete, not continuum. When the energy level is continuum, material will show its own bulk property that we call it as a macroscopic property. Metal will show its metallic conductivity, insulator will show its insulating properties, semiconductor will show its semiconducting properties. You take that bulk material, subdivide into nano. Let's take silicon. or cadmium sulfide, zinc oxide, or even gold for that matter, subdivide into nano. What happens? Number of atoms decreases. Number of silicon atom decreases. Cadmium sulfide ions decreases. So as the number of ions, atom molecules are less, then the density of state also will be less. As the density of states are less, there will be a change in the band gap. There will be a development of Kubo gap. It might even develop the band gap. Increased band gap you will see. No band gap, but there is increased band gap. So macroscopic property will move to mesoscopic or microscopic even. And there is a possibility of transitioning from metallic character to semiconductor to insulators as you move from bulk to nano, because the energy levels of the nanostructured materials are discrete compared to the continuum in the case of bulk materials, or the energy levels of the nanostructured materials are more of atomic in nature or molecular in nature. Atomic in nature or molecular in nature. This is what makes nanomaterials fascinating. The energy levels are not continuum and it is discrete, and it shows half an hour பொறுத்து பண்றேன்ப்பா. சைக்குமார் நான் ஒரு half an hour பொறுத்து பண்றேன்ப்பா. Okay. So this difference in the energy levels or density of state or discrete energy levels, that's what makes the difference in the nanomaterials. It is difficult to handle the atoms, ions or molecules. You cannot create any material with a single atoms. Of course, you can split the atoms using cyclotron and Van de Graaff. But out of one atom, it is not possible to make any material, any system or any product. But a collection of atoms, it may be a 10 power 10 or 10 power 5 or 100 atom, 200 atom or 300 atoms, it is possible to make. A grains, a nanograin typically contains a countable number of atoms and their energy levels are discrete. There is no band gap, or there is a band gap in the case of semiconductor in the bulk, but once you make the nanoparticles or nanomaterials, even in the case of metals, there can be a development of band gap. No doubt in the case of semiconductor, there is increased band gap. There is increased band gap. We have seen already in the bulk, there is delocalization and there is a restriction in the nanostructured materials. So based on the confinement effect, the nanostructures you can now connect. So three-dimensionally confined, there is no delocalization dimensions. In the case of one-dimensionally confined, so the rest of the two dimensions are still delocalization. If there is no confinement in the material, the charge carrier confinement, so it refers to bulk. Delocalization dimension is available 3 in the bulk. So the corresponding nanostructures are quantum dots, nanowire, nanotube, quantum bell, and if no confinement, it refers to bulk material, that is known as zero-dimensional material, confinement dimensions, or three-dimensional material, that essentially refers to bulk materials. And it is possible to quantify how many number of electrons can be there in a quantum dot, nanowire, nanowell, and also in the bulk. And if you differentiate these number of electrons with the energy of electron, that is what is known as density of state. This is the equation for getting the total number of electrons present in the bulk material. And it's a differentiation with respect to E. N is equal to K3 E3 by 2. So dN by dE is 3 by 2 K3 So E 3 by 2 minus 1 will be off. This is the number of electrons corresponding to the nanostructure quantum well, and its a differentiation dN by dE. Now we know it is the density of state. D is equal to this. Similarly, quantum dot, number of electrons, density of state. This is the mathematical formula. And quantum dots, as we know that in all the 3 dimensions or directions, the charge carriers are restricted for their mobility. It is highly confined and there is no delocalization. But in the bulk, there is no confinement and delocalization available all the 3 dimensions. In other cases, depending on the nanostructure or nanowire, either one direction or 2 directions restricted or moving. That equation is not very important, but this curve is important. That is equation expression. That equation can be translated into these curves. You see that density of state is continuum, or the number of electron. So number of electron is like this. And the differentiation of this curve is known as density of state. If you differentiate this curve, you will end up like this. If you differentiate this curve, this corresponding to the number of electron versus energy of electron for the quantum well, you will end up with this structure. So if you differentiate this curve corresponding to quantum wire, you will end up with this plot. For quantum dots, so this is the number of electron versus energy of electron. If you differentiate, you will end up with like this. What they signify? So for the bulk material, the density of state is continuum. There is no change in the bulk, there is no difference. Or the take-home point, density of state in the bulk is continuum. Whereas density of state in the nanostructures are no longer continuum. It is varying stepwise for the quantum well. And it is varying delta function in the case of quantum wire. And it is highly discrete in the case of quantum dots. So discrete means it is more like atomic in nature or molecular in nature. Bulk material, density of state is continuum. Quantum well, it is step function. And nanowires, nanorods, it is a delta triangle. And quantum dots, it is highly discrete. Bulk is continuum, quantum well is a step function, and quantum wire is a delta function, and zero-dimensional material, quantum dots, is highly discrete. If you see these three-dimensional nanomaterials, confinement, three-dimensionally confined materials, their energy levels are highly discrete, or the energy levels of the quantum dots are more like atomic in nature or molecular nature, and they show very different properties compared to the bulk materials, and those properties are much better, or sometimes we call these nanomaterials as a superatoms or smart materials. That is what it makes. Because of that, as the grain size decreases, there can be an increase in the band gap. There can be a development of Kubo gap. I didn't still define the Kubo gap. What is the Kubo gap? Band gap, you know. What is the Kubo gap? The average energy level present in the successive energy states. There is an energy level here, there is an energy level here, there is an energy level here, and there is a separation. And there is no separation in the bulk, but in the nanoparticle, there is a separation. What is the average that separation in a successive energy level is known as Kubo gap. And that is not zero in the case of nanoscale material, and it is very minimum or zero in the case of bulk material. This is a 1000 nanometer, more like a bulk material, but this is 0.1 nanometer. There is increase in the Kubo gap. Metals may develop Kubo gap. Metals may develop Kubo gap, and it is possible to quantify. Bulk material, total number of atoms are large. Nanomaterials, total number of atoms, ions, molecules are less. There is a decrease in the number of atoms, there is a decrease in the nuclearity, total number of atoms, and eventually there is increase in the Kubo gap. Delta is equal to E by N. N is total number of atoms, E is Fermi energy. If you know any two parameters, it is possible to estimate the third parameter. It happens that there can be a metal insulated transition because of the change in the density of state, because of increase in the band gap, or because of the development of Kubo gap. Metals may become semiconductor, semiconductor may become insulator, insulator will become more insulating. That is why when in the beginning of the start of this course, I told you, when you move from bulk to nano, metals may become semiconductor, semiconductor may become insulator, insulator will become insulating. Now we understand why. It all depends on grain size engineering, band gap engineering. It all depends on density of state, whether band gap increasing or the Kubo gap is developing, etc. So it's typically, it is estimated that if you make a 2 nanometer gold particle, according to this equation, you will get, or this 2 nanometer particle will have hardly countable number of particles, atoms, sorry, not particles, atoms, or roughly 400 atoms. And the collection of 400 gold atoms is highly catalytic. And we have a nanocatalyst. I think we will stop now. We will take up the band gap in the next class.
Yes, sir.
So if you want to ask anything, if you want to make some comments, clarification, you can ask. Sorry, I was a little bit accelerated. So because I want to complete it. Yeah, another class, then no more remedy class. So if you have any comments, clarification, you can ask. So otherwise, thank you.
So, thank you, sir.